Good evening. It's a beautiful morning in St. Louis, Missouri. So that's where I'm based out of. So it's in the Midwest, so central United States. Been here for about 6 years now, and we thoroughly love this, this big small town. So my name is Ravi Kyasaram. I'm originally from Hyderabad, so South India, but I've had the good fortune of living across different parts of India. I went to Punjab Engineering College, which is in Chandigarh. Then I worked with Tata Motors, which was in Lucknow, and then I also worked with Motors in sales in, Chhattisgarh in Madhya Pradesh. Then I got into Tata Administrative Service, so I had an opportunity to work in Mumbai, and then my hometown, Hyderabad, and also worked in Africa. So we'll go through all of it. After which, I came to the US to get my MBA at Harvard. And since my MBA, I've worked with two large American companies. So one of which is Emerson Electric. Emerson has about 10,000 people in India, so a fairly big conglomerate. So I was with Emerson until August of this year, sorry, and then I moved to Edward Jones. So again, like Utkarsh was, talking about the health minister who had a wide portfolio which had probably very little intersection visually. So Emerson and Edward Jones are like that. Emerson is a diversified manufacturing company, and Edward Jones is a wealth management company, which obviously falls in the financial services sector. So this is me. I'm very social, both here and on LinkedIn too. So feel free to connect with me, and I'd love to keep the dialogue on, beyond this scheduled 50 minutes that we have. So what I have here is, these are the three sections that I was talking about. So it's really important for me to always look at my roots. So, no matter what happens, and it just is, it just helps me be more positive. It helps me be more happy when you see where, when, you've come. It's really important to see where you've come from to actually see the progress that you've made. So I'll share my roots with you. Then I'll also speak about my formative years, which include, education and the Tata Group. And then I wanted to create a special section for Harvard Business School so we can spend as much or as little time based on how excited you're all about this topic. And then we can spend some time on my, what do I do for a living? So I build growth strategies, and that's what I do for a living. So we'll spend some time on that. But the last piece, personal growth strategy, is actually what has gotten us together. So Utkarsh and, obviously I shared this common passion for empowering, as many people as we can. And this is one of those fantastic, privilege opportunities that I have to share some of the learnings, that I've had over the last 12, 13 years, and wish, these are learnings that I'd share with a 25-year-old version of myself. So I'm 36. So if I were to look at a 25-year-old Ravi, these are exactly the things that I'd be sharing with him. So let me jump in. So this is the first section, roots. A lot of people think that you have to be phenomenally, well off, for the lack of better words, to go to an Ivy League and do big things for yourself. And this is just an example. This is just a reality check. That's not true at all. So this picture on the left is my father's family. So the person on the extreme right of the left picture is my father. So this is 1970s. So they lived in that, little hut, as you see, that is behind, and also on the right side. So it's really remarkable story. My grandfather, he just found a guy who was a visiting photographer, and he said, hey, do you mind come and click a picture of our family? And this is 1970s, and where, photographers were a rare species. And just despite, the challenges that they had in terms of a socio-economic situation, I just admire the vision of our old man, who I never had an opportunity to meet, but just to capture these memories. So we'll get back to this in a little bit. So these are the roots, and the reason why I shared this is because, each one of us is doing really well these days, and the only credit to that is because of our investment in education and the investment that my father's generation has made in educating themselves to kind of break the shackles of poverty, if you will. So okay, so my story, like I said, this is going to be a common narrative. So I went to Punjab Engineering College. It was a remarkable experience for a South Indian boy who was very fond of Punjabi music and Punjabi food to naturally find himself in Chandigarh. So loved every bit of my 4 years. So I'm a production engineer. So on the left side, the black font is things that I feel are the most memorable say pieces of that experience. So I was the head of all the hostels that we lived in, which is an elected representative for the students. So it kind of gave me a lot of good leadership skills. And then the third portion is Liami. So Liami is a non-official student body. We'll talk about that in a second. So it just gave us phenomenal skills to run an organization, host events, and so on and so forth. And then I also participated in different clubs like most of our undergrad schools have. So just to think about my 4 years at Punjab Engineering College, so what deep generalist skill set did I explore and learn? And this is again a constant that you would see, just to hit the nail on its head. So I think my engineering degree, it might have taught me a lot of things, but one thing that really is etched, which is indelible in my mind, is the curiosity quotient and the curiosity around why. So, and I sincerely feel that unless you have that curiosity to question everything that you notice, and you don't really have to verbalize this question, you just have to respond. You have to have the curiosity to think, oh, why is this happening in this way? And then think about it and wrap your head around why this might be happening the way it is. So I will not get into a lot of nuts and bolts at this point, but just wanted to highlight the importance of curiosity. And I also got really fascinated by turbochargers, wastewater management, the engineer in me. And where yeah, I'd read a Mint article that probably Utkarsh published, and it speaks about a lot of disconnection between you pursue a career and you don't necessarily sorry you pursue a qualification and you don't necessarily do something that's commensurate to the qualification. But in my case, I've been very lucky, though I have not sketched drawings or designed automobile parts. This learning that I developed in my 4 years at Punjab Engineering College really helped me think about the whys and think about it as a constant part. So even if you don't do the exact thing that you're expected to do after a stint, it's okay as long as you can zoom out and you can think about the 30,000, 50,000 level view and pick snippets from those experiences and learnings that you could apply in different areas. So the other three things that I briefly touched upon are leadership, representing fellow students, managing hostel staff who's obviously twice or thrice your age, and managing faculty. So this is very, there's always a tension. It's almost like a triangle where each of the corners is never stable. So just to be in the middle of it and make sure that the triangle doesn't collapse gave me a lot of early leadership exposure. And how do I look at it and how do I balance these three sides? And Liami really helped me think about an organization. So it's it is the single most perfect organization that I've been a part of. The way we did things, and we'd always pursued excellence in terms of, if you're doing an event, it had to be the most well thought out idea. It had to be the most well thought out execution plan, and we took a lot of pride in delivering excellence. So that was that. And the last part, which also came from Liami, was part of what we did was, in one semester we focused exclusively on self development. and in the next focus we do a large event. So the self development would be, presenting to the other members, to the other students, which kind of really got me to thinking about, just thinking. And I put the thoughts into two categories: introspection and reflection. So it just made me think about who am I, how am I going to be a better version of who I am. And reflection is, okay, how have I done this, and how would I like to do it better. And both these things, introspection and reflection, help me in my evolution. So that's the reason why I put those three things together. So Warrior, do we have a lot of questions, or
Yeah, we have one that just came through. Sayam, do you want to go ahead and ask that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Arya. Well, pretty interesting stuff already. Glad you're going through a life story. Really sets the context to really understand where you're coming from. I think you mentioned curiosity, right, and exposure to technology. So I think I'll be speaking for some of us, if not many of us here. But I come from a traditional non. Technology background, right? Unfortunately, I studied economics all my life, and all I did was when I did my masters, I borrowed tools from physics like Fourier transform and spectral density and God knows what, just in an attempt to, I think, for the profession has obviously been making attempts to sound cooler than it is, right? So I was part of that. I loved doing it, but I currently do technology investing, right? So and that really comes with its own challenges, but then it's super fun, right? So one day you speak to a deep tech EV startup, honestly not understanding what they're saying, and then now you hear about Web3 and metaverse every other day, right? And when you don't, for example, you haven't written a single line of code, you can easily be swayed away by what's been happening. One obviously solution to that is thinking through in first principles. But I personally am of the opinion that, yeah, fine, it's an amazing skill set to pick up, but it only takes you so far. So either you then deep dive into, let's say, one specific technology, talk to people, learn more about it, or you do something like a Buffett and Munger do, which is basically too hard, not my thing. But I think everyone will have to understand technology right in the future. Like, and when I say understand, like deeply understand technology. So how would you suggest I go about it, right? Curiosity is one thing. Obviously, I know I'm a consumer of so many, but like deep tech, right? How does one go about understanding that?
so
Or like
Simon?
any
No,
will do.
it's a great question. So obviously curiosity can only get you so far, and curiosity is more of an intrinsic quality that makes you do a lot of things that might really get you to where you want to get to. So one of the fundamental questions that I'd ask of you is, deep technology appreciation pretty much means that you are investing in that space, and you would be spending a substantial portion of your time in that space. So I'm more of a deep generalist, which means that I can get into good depth across section of topics. But if you would ask me, Ravi, are you really capable of going all the way down? Probably not. And do I aspire that? I do not as well. So I think with that said, so one of the most important questions that you have to ask of yourself, Simon, is do I really want to be a deep, really deep expert in an area and not a deep generalist? And if your answer is, sorry, excuse me, and if your answer is you'd want to be, a deep expert in the area, then it's not just curiosity. You probably have to, spend significant amount of time educating yourself in the space, which obviously comes from reading, and reading, from journals that speak about the topic, and especially because we're talking about technology here, so you'll have to read publications and see. You just have to also get in touch with people in academia who might know a lot about that space, and also just look at experts who might be willing to spend some time with you. So that all of this is applicable if you want to go really deep and want to become an expert. Now if you just want to stay like me and still have some depth and not be concerned about being known as an expert, what I'd suggest is the curiosity will help you gather questions which I'd categorize as fact finding exercise. So you should have a pattern of fact finding. So, and fact finding, if you look at lean manufacturing or some of the Japanese principles, so they have some techniques called as 7 Qs, which is 7 questions. So, if you just go on Google and type 7 Qs, you'll get a whole lot of literature on that. So that could be a good way to look at it. But the way I think about it is, I always think about root cause analysis. So when I'm trying to find facts, I try to find facts to an extent, to a point where I know, okay, this is the root cause, which is really, the epicenter, or no, epicenter is probably a poor choice of word, but it is really the, the center of what is driving this. So, and in my case, working across different industries, different functions, I've always, thought about two strings, especially in the business context. One string is customers. So why would a customer buy your product? So, and so on and so forth. And the second is, just around the business model. So how do you take the product to market? So with these two building blocks, I've been able to answer a lot of questions, which kind of, got me enough knowledge to kind of create a body of work and socialize it and make progress. So just to summarize, I am, if you're looking to be a deep expertise, you have to get really close to people who know this, and you have to invest a lot of time. But if you're looking at deep generalist skill sets, then identify the questions that you would need and let those questions become the pattern for you to become, become more educated about the space that you're working in.
So much. I think, personally speaking, I'll go for the latter one, I guess, for multiple reasons, right? But which we can discuss probably offline. But thank you so much. That was very well structured and really helpful.
Thanks, Sayam. Vikas, go ahead. I know you have a quick question, and then we can take Sunya's question.
Hi, Ravi. This is Vikas. I have a quick question to ask you. It's about the amount of time that you spend getting into learning a skill. When do you know that this is good enough amount of information that you have to move ahead? Otherwise, you get it caught into this loop of trying to perfect the skill. Maybe you may never start, and even if you start, you're not happy with the project. So it's it's like one of the reasons that Germany lost World War II is that they over-engineered the tanks. And the tanks wouldn't even last a couple of days, but the engineering was so good, it was supposed to last itself, lubricate itself, and last for a couple of years. So that's where they got it wrong. So how do you kind of get over this fallacy?
So Vikas, I've always thought about Pareto as a guiding principle in my life. So, 80% of the outcome, comes from 20%. So, it just is, the 80-20 rule. And for you to be able to accomplish 100 on 100, it might take a lifetime, and we might not even get there. So my sense is, I go for that, and I look for the low hanging, and I try to shoot for the 80%. And once I feel, and a lot of these things, Vikas, another thing is, you have to, none of these things that I'm talking about, I never really sat down and made it a point to, master these things, except for a few things which I would come to say. Communication has been an area, being more intentional, situational awareness is something that I am constantly consciously working on. But most of these things, Vikas, are about introspection, which tells you, oh, what do I lack? And then constantly thinking about them and trying to find answers and trying to make progress. So most of the time that you spend is subconscious time. So, and like you've said, great example that you've shared. So I would never, and again, the very essence of being a deep generalist is not to be a deep expert. So if you're there at an 80% level, which will get to 90% in due course of time, that's great. And because you have to think about, you're going to be or 90% on so many different things. So that is going to trump being 100% on one or two or three things. And in all honesty, there's something called as a uh, we'll talk about it another time, but even professionally, you are evaluated against your skill set, which is people categorize you. Are you a deep talent or are you a broad talent? So it completely depends. Someone who's a nuclear, physicist, he would be or she would be a deep talent. And there is a lot of good out of being a deep talent. And there are a lot of other people like me who are more of a broad talent, at least in my eyes. So it again is a personal choice. And because if you're one who feels that you're the latter category, like Siam thought of himself and I think of myself, then I would never be hung up about being an expert in any one of these things. You should not just be a jack of all trade, but you have to be somewhere between the jack and master. So
Thank you.
hope that helps.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Yeah,
I think
definitely helps.
yeah, thanks Vikas. And I think just building on this, I think Tanya's question, adds to what Vikas asked. So Tanya, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thanks, Maria. Hi, Ravi. So glad to be learning from you today. Sorry, I'm not on camera. My net is really bad today.
No,
So
no
I
worries.
had a question about your point on, self-introspection and self-development. So I work in a marketing field right now, and we're already working with like multiple teams with different specialists. And I got interested in this field of cognitive science
Hmm.
like sometime early this year. And I really wanted to like study it ahead or like really understand how it can be applied in business. But it's an emerging field and there's so much out there. There's applications in like AI, ML, but there's also like psychology, sociology there. So I have been trying to kind of explore it on my own, but getting lost and like not, being able to really find something valuable. So basically, my question is when you start learning or exploring newer areas, is there a right way to go about? Like, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, no, go ahead, finish your question.
Yeah, I mean, is there some framework or, these three things you will, look for and then you'll move forward?
So I think what is really important is a gut check, Tanya, and in terms of just in terms of what gives you happiness. So when I look at my background, or when I look at what I really get excited about, my excitement comes from, oh, how do these different businesses make money, and how are they different from one another operating in the same
Hmm.
space? Like there are airlines in the United States that you might have heard about, or they're pretty similar. Like Southwest is a no frills airline and the most successful in the last 45 years. And then you have a Delta. I love both of them, and both of them are exceptionally
Yeah.
successful, but they operate quite differently. So similarly, when you think about
Hmm.
cognitive science, and when you think about its applications, say AI, ML, or psychology or sociology, it really comes down to you as an individual. So what makes you happy? Do
Hmm.
you think applying cognitive science with sociology, where you're thinking about people and so on and so forth, does that give you happiness? Or do you want to apply it in AI or ML and think about a career in the tech field? So it is a very, very personal question, but one of the most important things is, I mean, just to be a little informal, maza kis mein aa
Hmm.
raha hai? So that's the question that you always have to answer, that
Good point.
what do you really enjoy? Because one of the things that I've learned is a lot of us growing up back home, including myself, there are emotional reasons why we do what we do. Like my father could, he got into one of the best engineering colleges in India, and he could only go there for
Hmm.
1 month, because he's like, oh my God, if I study for 5 years, who's going to take care of my family? So he just did not do it. So even for me, growing
Hmm.
up, I was like, oh, I want to be an engineer and so on and so forth. And luckily, it worked out for me because my passion is in that space. But
Hmm.
just to be very truthful to you, it is really and you're in a great place because you're asking these questions. A huge population segment would not even ask these questions, and they'd just say, oh, this might have a better future,
Hmm.
so I'll do this. So I think you're asking the right question, but forgive me, I can't give you any more deeper insights, but leave you with the thought or question that always explore what gives you happiness, and what do you think is a good personality fit.
No, this is so helpful. Thank you for like putting it in simple terms. This is helpful. Thank you.
Perfect. No, thanks a lot for asking the question. So, Maria, do we have a hard stop at 10 o'clock, or can we go a little over if we need to?
Yeah, we can go a little over. If someone else needs to drop off, they can, because it's a little late in India. But
Oh, yeah, perfect. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. Okay, I'll try to breeze through this. So, after my undergrad, I went to Tata Motors, and I did a variety of stints. And first was I was on the shop floor, and then I did sales for a few months, and then I got into a leadership development program, fast track selection scheme, and TAS. So each one of them has a skill set that I've explored or learned. So when I was on the shop floor, I kind of could figure out the factory physics, which is still one of the most important learnings that I've had in my life. And what I mean by factory physics is, how does every function work and come together on the assembly line? So when you think about, constructing a truck or building a truck, you're thinking about, different components coming together. There's an engine, there's a chassis, there's a suspension, there is a lot of, there's a powertrain. So these are all different people, these are all different technologies, but just to be on the assembly line and to see everything come together, it was just remarkable. And and then again, I use the same root cause analysis. If something didn't fit well, then you think about, oh, was it a design issue, was it an operations issue, was it a quality issue? So it just gives you a lot of learning to be on the shop floor. So one of the things that I'd suggest is, if at all, if ever you get an opportunity to be in operations, especially if you're young, and if you're in your formative years, do that for 2 3 years, because it might not be the most intellectually stimulating if you spend too much time in it, but for the first 1 2 years, it is remarkable because you get to see the confluence of sales, marketing. You get to see a lot of technology. You get to see a lot of different things, supply chain. So it's fantastic. So, and a consistent theme from the last chart is leadership. So I used to manage a lot of operators on the shop floor, yell at them, and also hug them, when we had a good month or a good week. So that was great. And after that, when I moved to the sales journey, one of the big reasons why I moved to Tata Motors sales was, after 2.5 years on the shop floor, I was like, I know how manufacturing happens. I know how this comes together. But what I do not know is, how do our products create value? If you're building a truck, how does this truck generate revenues for its owner? And that curiosity led me to pursue this opportunity in sales, where I went and I figured out unit economics. Especially if you're in a B2B environment, you have to be very conscious about unit economics, because whatever you're selling to another business, the business is going to further sell it to a consumer and then make money. So from your standpoint, you have to be very conscious, what value am I creating, and how is, if the value that you're creating is building a product, then what value does the product build? And the last piece is, this stint at Tata Motors also gave me an opportunity to look at accelerated career progression. So just to give you an example, I was an assistant manager, which was at level 1, and when I cleared Tata Administrative Service, I jumped to level 5. And my boss, when I was an assistant manager, was at level 4, and he graduated from Punjab Engineering College too, but about 15 years back. So the power of accelerated career progression was, it took me, 12 years ahead in my career, and I was one level ahead of him. And not to say that I'm not bragging, but I'm just sharing this as an example of what conscious acceleration in your career path can do to you. So, any any questions, or let me just cover tasks and then we'll pause for questions if that's okay.
Yeah,
So
I think that sounds good.
after Tata Motors, so typically what happens is you have to be in one of the top 6 business schools in India, at least in 2010, to participate in TAS selection process. But in my case, what was remarkable was they always allowed a few of us, called, from the in-house, to participate. So I was an in-house candidate, so you had to have worked in a Tata Group company for 2 years or 3 years to, take a stab at this. So luckily, I took a stab at it. So the process was, fairly challenging, and but it got the best out of me. And I was very lucky to be one of the few people who did not have an MBA, but still were a part of TAS. And at TAS, I worked for 5 companies: Titan Industries, Tata Steel, Tata Africa. I went to Madhya Pradesh to do a rural stint, and then I came back and worked for Mr. Tata's office. And as you can see from the pictures here, as a member of the Tata Group, you get to spend time with Mr. Tata. And I was very lucky to kind of actually come back from Africa and work for him. My boss used to report to Mr. Tata, and I was a part of his office for about 2 years, where I've been able to build a very strong rapport with him, which I'm very blessed to still keep intact. So we'll talk about that element too. But some of the deep generalist skill set I explored and learned was, this was the first time, right? So till Tata Motors, I was in automobiles. So the only industry that I had to learn was automobiles. But once I moved from Tata Motors to TAS, I had an opportunity to, think about, oh, how does Titan make its products? And, how does Tata Africa trade different products from India? So it was a great cross-industry exposure and great cross-functional exposure. And one of the things that I realized is different functions have different levels of importance in different industries. So if you look at Titan is a 100% marketing machine. They buy off the shelf designs, and then they, also get products with their private labels on, and that's how their product life cycle is, or product development time is so short, and they're able to churn out new designs, new models in a very quick time period, which keeps the fashion conscious youth excited about their product. So that's Titan. And now when you look at Tata Motors has always been about low cost and maximum value. So if you look at, the picture that you see with all of us, Nano is a classic example of that. How do we focus on cost and minimize it so we can stay competitive? And the last element is across geography. So it's a lot of fun for a South Indian to work in North India, invest in India and Eastern India, and also to go explore Africa. So it's a lot of fun to be in different geographies and build those relationships. And another consistent theme is leadership. So I continued, and this was a phenomenal opportunity, because when I was at Tata Motors, the only time I met our managing director, Mr. Telang, who unfortunately passed away, last week. Um, I met him once, and I had a brief conversation, and it was more of a question that I had asked of him when he had come to meet with all of us during the fast track selection scheme process. And but once I got into TAS, it starts with Mr. Tata, but you meet so many top leaders, and you're constantly thinking about them. You're constantly thinking about their leadership styles. And another element is leadership in terms of running your projects too. So each of these projects, the first four, 1, 2, 3, 4, were about 3 months each. and you have to deliver on critical projects with quick turnaround. So there's an element of leadership there too. And lastly, focus a lot on being action oriented, being structured in my thinking, collaboration, and of course executive presence. And there was this deep desire, deep hunger in me, and a desire to just shine and be the best version that I could be. So again, I'm sorry, I went I went a little deep into these things, but before we get into the next section, happy to take any questions, Varya.
As the other participants chime in, I think one question that's come up very often in general in the Deep Generalist Fellowship is around even if you're a generalist, there are specific things that you need to sort of communicate about yourself, especially when you're, say, looking for new roles, or, in your case, as
Yeah.
you go on to the HBS section, say, communicating that in your application. So how do you sort of pick that or communicate that well? And second, as you think about leadership based on this, right, there are certain, within leadership, it's always a spectrum that there are some things you're good at, other things you're okay at, and certain things that might be weaknesses for you. So as a deep generalist, how do you look at both these things? A, communicating yourself, and second, augmenting your leadership as you rise above, and especially in your case, as you're someone who has risen much faster than, say, what a typical career span would look like in places like TCS or other organizations that are fairly hierarchical and structured in their approach of promotions and other things. So what might be some insights from there?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So let me tackle the first question first, which is, how do you communicate? And again, going back to what Tanya and I, the brief exchange there, I think it's again a lot of introspection in terms of what do you really want to do. And in my case, I've always visualized myself, being at an altitude where I have a deep appreciation for different functions in an organization and the confluence of those functions in problem solving. So that has been my strong desire that I'd hate to be pigeonholed and said, oh, this is your job and you can only do this and you cannot do that. So from that standpoint, I am you know an epitome of generalist as it gets. And the depth that I add comes from different areas. So I always start with strategy, which is a primary focus, just in terms of defining what do you want to be when you grow up, right? And I'd bring the same question to this audience and challenge us, what do you want to be when you grow up? So ask yourself that question. Do you want to be a chief marketing officer? Do you want to be a chief technology officer? Do you want to be the head of sales? Do you want to run the human resource element? Or do you want to say, I love all of these things and I'm really passionate about numbers. I'm passionate about what my competitors are doing. And I'm blessed with very good leadership skills, which I can hone further. And hence, I'd want to be at the very top of the organization and want to be a CEO. So I think based on what your gut tells you where you want to be, that sets the altitude that you'd want to accomplish. And the communication warrior, in my mind, is a factor of how do you connect the dots? So where are you today? And what are the different milestones that you need to identify for yourself as you build yourself to that apex level that you have in your mind? So I think communication just stems from thinking in terms of where you want to get to. So hope that helps, Varya. And Varya, did that also cover your second question before we go to
Yeah, I think
Niti?
it did. And I think we can go ahead and come back. Okay, I see a quick question. So Niti, go ahead, and we can then proceed after that.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ravi. And following up on what you said, so basically, I'm personally also struggling with something, that is, I want to build a skill set. So right now I'm working at a trade organization, but my focus has been more on leadership and management. and the focus has not been very much on the trade or the marketing side. Now, I know that in future, perhaps I want to explore this field, but I don't know where the bridge is, because when I look at, for example, MBA courses, they are too detailed and there's so much that I'm like, maybe I don't want to get into it. But in case I switch my role and I apply, for example, for some marketing role, they may not give as well because I don't have experience. So how do you bridge this? How do you translate? So I'm struggling with how do I translate this curiosity into action, and where is that bridge? In case that you could share some insights on that. Thank you.
No, absolutely, Niti. And you bring up a brilliant point in terms of, hey, I want to do all of these things, but am I in the right place? And am I in the right ecosystem? So, I mean, you also have to think about, so you have to be very choosy about who you, I mean, as long as we can afford to be choosy, in terms of who we work with. So in this case, without knowing much about the organization that you're a part of, it doesn't seem like, leadership or career growth to become a general manager. It doesn't seem like a track that is really sought after or favored by the organization. Do you think that's a right assessment?
Yeah, so I work for United Nations, and
Okay.
so their focus is not really on the marketing side. They would build the capacity of the farmers, for example, to trade, but then they won't reach out to the customers, or they would not reach out to marketing the brand.
So Nithya, I mean, I'd love to take this offline and also pick your brains further, but one of the things that comes to my mind is, if you can come up with a compelling reason and a narrative as to how United Nations is missing out on maximizing their opportunities without pursuing this element which you're calling marketing, and get it to people that would really make a difference. And if you can come up with an action plan and say, define the need, and B, if you can come up with some steps that you would take to fulfill the need, and the need has to be fulfilled with very minimum financial implications, and for all you can say, hey, this is an area that I'm passionate about, and I feel that in an year's time I'll be able to make a significant difference. Then I'm sure people would be convinced. And if you can get them, and what it does is, Niti, you will get an opportunity to do something that no one has ever done, and which will be a huge boost to not just your self confidence, but also to the organization and the people who would have believed in you and in this thought. Had you said, Ravi, I work for such and such company, I would have probably went the route of, Niti, you might have to explore other career opportunities that you have, and might want to go to an FMCG, which might be more interested in someone who would be building putting together a marketing skill set. But in this case, because it's United Nations and you will get an opportunity to do something that has never been done before, I'd suggest that, see if you can push this agenda forward and play a role, and that would do a significant amount of good for you. And even if it comes back to doing your MBA, it just gives you a fantastic set of credentials to shoot for the stars, because you've done something that no one has ever thought of or has done. So that'd be my recommendation, but feel free to reach out and we can chat further.
Yeah, and just adding on that very quickly, one of the sessions or the upcoming sessions for the fellowship sort of looks at that, because what Ravi in a way implied was that you need to speak their language, because a challenge with Deep Generalist is just communicating how you'll be able to fit in the specific role, say some other organization, individual or team is looking at. And therefore it's not, might not be a skill challenge, but might be a communication thing. And there's one section sort of focused on that how you can really communicate things about your experience, or like how Ravi put it, connect the dots in a way that makes sense to the party you're trying to convince. So yeah, with that, Ravi, you can go ahead to the final section. I'm assuming this is the last one, right?
I do have another one, but we'll try to breeze through these. So,
Okay.
and so, you know, uh, Niti, feel free to reach out, and I'd hate for someone as bright as you to struggle. I mean, this the beauty about all of these people that you have in this call is you can just bounce your concerns off, and you'll get a lot of good suggestions. So the first step is just to voice them out, and which you've already done. So kudos to you for that. So
Thank you
so
so much, Ravi. And it just gives me more confidence even on raising this topic. You've really given a good direction on identifying the gap and making it a case for ourselves. Thank you so much. And
yeah,
I
and
will
then
talk to you offline.
you'll be so happy, if you're able to make this mountain move. It'll just give you, at the on the other side of a struggle is a lot of delight when you overcome that. So keep pushing. So Harvard Business School happened. So I'm pretty sure one of the folks on the admission board made a huge mistake and lost his job, or her job. But I did get into Harvard, and they did not rescind the admit. So I went there, and the fun fact about how and where did this the dream start. And I'd also say, an element of our success also is deeply rooted on our dreams, on what we aspire to achieve. So when I was in my third year of engineering, and this is a typical hostel room conversation, one of the guys that I was really fond of, who was in his final year, and he's like, how Indians get into Harvard? They get into Harvard by getting into an IIM first, and they spend a year, and then they apply to Harvard Business School. That's how they get it. So I did not really focus a lot on how Indians get into a Harvard, but it just planted that seed that, oh my God, this is an opportunity too. An Indian can go to a Harvard Business School too, and it could be my dream. And somehow, just going back to the previous question, you have to think what your apex goal is at that point in your career. And for me, at that point in my third year of undergrad was, I want to get into Harvard Business School. And I did not vocalize it, just because it didn't make sense. But this was, a very important focus area for me, just to be able to, just to be able to channel my energy. And it was a phenomenal experience. And we can, worry if we can spend an entire module on this. So I'll not get into a lot of details. But it was just a remarkable experience. I met Mr. Tata a few times. He was on campus, and we could, spend some time. This was one of the pictures from then, and these are all my section mates. And as you can see, we had about 36 nationalities, I think, uh, in the classroom, and 36 different passports. So a whole lot of variety in about 93 students in a section. So and again, there's the same lean guy on that first picture that you had seen, my father. And it was just a delight and a dream come true. And this is also a part of me, right? So there are a lot of things that you can give your parents in terms of wealth and in terms of tangibles. But I kept wondering, what is something that I can give that probably is an intangible, and that make them delighted the rest of their lives. And that was again very strong motivator, a very, very strong motivator. So I think a lot of things that we go on to achieve is comes a lot from your heart. So it is heart, and the mind follows heart, or at least that's how I am wired. It is my heart that takes me there, and the mind helps me in execution. So and I'll just go through this quickly, and just focus your eyes on the blue text. So some of the deep generalist skills that I learned at business school, and learning finance and business economics. So Niti, like, you want to learn about marketing, I had no clue. And I think, Siam, you mentioned that you've done economics as your undergrad, and I envy you for that. I just love economics so much, and I've never had an opportunity to kind of be in a classroom setting and understand the impact of macroeconomics on our lives and also on business. So that was phenomenal. And then I did some signature courses like building and sustaining a successful enterprise, taught by Professor Clayton Christensen, who's no more with us. And negotiations, which is again a life skill. And again, business at the base of the pyramid, taught by an Indian professor, on how you can really drive successful ventures even at the bottom of the pyramid, like an Arvind, eye care, or Narayana Hrudayalaya. So the two great examples that we have. So the biggest learning there was a good sense to analyze different organizations in different industries operating in the different geographies. And outside the classroom, I've built a lot of strong relationships. I've developed a better view, and I also had an opportunity to educate my classmates about our wonderful country, about the Tata Group, and what is consistent between both is our unmatched culture. So again, these are just some details on what exactly you get from an experience at Harvard, which is I've always learned from people, and experiential based learning has been my primary go-to, at least for many years now. And this was just a great opportunity. And Niti, like I was suggesting to you, this is a great forum. So as much as you interact with all of the people here, you get to share your ideas, you get to learn from their views. So it's really important that we keep communicating and keep sharing our thoughts. And one of the things that I learned at Harvard Business School is, these are all the things, is there's no right answer. That's number two on this list. And which is a very, very important lesson. Even as a deep generalist, you have to believe that there is never going to be a single answer. And if any one of you has done calculus, so it's almost like differential calculus, there are multiple ways to arrive at the same answer. So don't be hung up on, is this the only career path that I take to get to where I want to? No, you can make a lot of pivots, you can make a lot of adjustments, and hopefully all our lives are long, healthy, and happy. So we'll be able to explore a lot of different routes to success. And another thing that I really like is number 6. Always have a game plan. So think about what you'd want to achieve from your week. Think about what you want to achieve from your month. Think about what you want to achieve from your year. And similarly, think about what you want to achieve from each stint, be it in the corporate world or in a startup or in a school setting. So that I'll just skip through this. This is a lot of fun. And there is one more section, but let me pause here and get a gut check. If I put 80% of you to sleep, or to bed, or if everyone's still with us.
No, I think everyone's here. I think we can just check if there are any questions. Otherwise, go to the final section and then come back to the questions.
I mean, I have a question.
Yeah,
Like
please go
I'm
ahead.
sure almost everyone has 100 million questions about Harvard Business School. So we don't say it, we all want it. So I'll take the lead there, I guess. But my question would be, again, I think the way education and MBA specifically is now, I think, moving towards is that there seems to be certain hacks, right, to crack a Harvard or a Stanford or a Columbia specifically, right? Um, I've never been that sort of a person, do consulting, get into the buy side, go into Harvard, right? Obviously, amazing, clearly works for most people. But then what you're doing is essentially work, right? And I think one of the, I was speaking in the previous, social mixer of network capital to a couple of people here about how I think Naval Ravikant says that, to be really successful, whatever success means to you, you need to be doing what feels like play to you and work to others, right? So I might feel Varia's working super hard on network capital, and oh my god, I mean, obviously, she must be like super tired and like, do I want to do this? But then she comes and says, like, you know what, have you seen Roger Federer play? Sure, he's working like super hard, but it's play to him, like Sachin, Roger Federer, and Albert Einstein, right? So my point is, I feel, personally speaking, and I would love to take this offline with you, that finally I do feel I've stumbled upon something that feels like play to me. Definitely feels like work to everybody working with me. But do I then need HBS, essentially MBA, right? And I'm doing exactly what I would want to do after an MBA too. I think there's a broader question would be like, yes, leadership obviously, and plus that brand, the people you meet, the experience is amazing. But then 2 years of your life, right? At this juncture, do I want to give to that? Secondly, I don't have a traditional background, right? So I spent 8 months writing my profile to get into like the, like an HBS and GSB. And then, I mean, obviously somebody who has a vanilla profile, and that's what I'll call it, because like, I think from class 11 now, people talk about entering McKinsey, BCG, Bain, right? Like, come on, I'm sure it's amazing, but then there's a very structured like hack to it. Like, aise karna hai, this sum is how you do it. Like, you arrive at this answer by learning a couple of formulas. It seems like that to me. I know it's beyond, because there's some amazing people who crack it, including some of your colleagues and yourself, but more light on this, please, right? And secondly, age, right? Sweet spot for an Indian non-engineer male would be to do XYZ, apply at 25. So I don't fall in that circle of whatever, the magic circle, right? So what would you suggest? Should I stop thinking
So
about it?
no, what I'd suggest is stop thinking about the cohort. Okay, think about, let it be more about you. So you know and this is not just for HPS, for anything in life. So if you think about, this is what everybody else is doing, would I ever meet the match the mold, or do I fit in? I mean, it's a good question to have. I'm not saying that never ask that question, but let that never be the lead question. Let that not be the first question. Let the first question would be about, oh, I've got a different backgrounds and they always talk about diversity. Would I be able to add value? Yes. And my hack or my mold, if you're thinking about Harvard Business School or any top school, is I would want to categorize this into three buckets. One, how have you done in your academics all your life? Have you, do you have good credentials there? The second is, how have you done professionally? Are there elements of professional success that speak to your excellence? And the third element is, what are some of your highlights, in outside of work and education? So how strong is your portfolio on extracurricular activities? So, I mean, my thought was, if you excel at two of these things, and if you're good in the third thing, that is good enough. So you don't need to really, be and also think about the cookie cutter approach, right? When they're seeing a bunch of McKinsey, it's not that then they're not enough McKinsey, Bain, BCG folks applying. So there is a lot of you should play this to your strength, and think about it from your standpoint. And I mean, that's what I'd say. Just and honestly, it doesn't matter where you land, but I'd sincerely suggest that, if you are listening to this, if you're a part of this fellowship, it is really important. It makes me believe that you want to be a deep generalist, and for a deep generalist, without necessarily stereotyping it, I feel MBA gives you a lot of those skills, and MBA gives you the platform. And even to the question that Niti had asked a little while back, or you know Tanya had asked a little while back. So I have a very dear friend who was with me at TAS, and she followed me to Harvard Business School, and she is into cognitive science, and this is, behavioral based marketing or client experience is what she does. And Niti, to your point, if you are fed up with something and you're like, this is just not the place where I want to be, MBA gives you that opportunity to pivot, and it gives you the opportunity to pivot multiple times, because MBAs as such are thought to be generalists. So Sayam, from your standpoint, it depends on where you're investing those 2 years. But if it is, one of the top schools, you would really find, and especially for someone like you, who I see has a lot of energy, who's very, thoughtful, who's very vigilant about what's happening around you. So I think, you just find yourself amongst three, 400 people like you, which kind of adds up to many more thousands when you look at the alumni network. So it is a space and the sooner you do it, you better it is. And I pursued my MBA when I was 27. So, and I got into business school when I was 27, and I was the average age at Harvard Business School. I was not above, I was not below. So I don't know how old you are, and don't mean to ask you
Just turned
that.
27. No, you can tell me I look like 21. That's all right.
No. That's no. I mean, I'm just saying that, and I've had classmates who've had three kids who are a part of my business school. So when you think that the average is 27, there are a bunch of 22s, 23s, and there are also people in their early 30s. So it's never too late. As long as you can play to your strengths, that's, I mean, always, and not thinking about others and thinking about yours, about you, will give you that opportunity to think about your strengths. So that's where
Yeah.
I'd request you to focus your energy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this. I have a couple more questions, but I'll rather take that offline, and if I'll reach out if that is all right.
Perfect. That'd be splendid.
Amazing.
Thanks,
Thank you.
I am Yogeshwar, please go ahead.
Thank you, Vaya. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Thanks a lot, Ravi, for taking out the time. So, I think like you've talked about how you focus on getting cross-functional and cross-industry experience. So I'm currently getting the same exposure at TAS, was an in-house candidate. So experience has been awesome. And in future, I would also be looking at doing an MBA. And I want to continue the next decade. I want to focus on just doing this deep generalist, as many industries, as many functions as possible. But for an MBA, you're typically expected to have a very clear vision, like of your long-term goal. So when I was talking about this, getting this diversity, a lot of people are advising, no, while you can have it internally, at least for the application sake, have a very clear single long-term goal. Just want to understand, how did you navigate this when you were going through the application process?
So did you say you're in TAS?
Yes, that in-house. So I'm the first year going through all the different industries and getting all the really diverse experience.
Oh, that's awesome. So I'm so glad this speaks to the efforts that Varya and Utkarsh have put into kind of broaden the network. So very pleased. So congratulations. So I mean, just to answer your question, uh, you know, my focus was on leadership. And when you cling on to the leadership string, you don't really have to be specific about where you want to lead. You can lead in a different industry, and you can lead in a different function until you get to the very top. So I'd suggest that, and one of the things that I had clearly articulated is that, I'd want to be a general manager, and and that amount of specificity, if I've used the word correctly, is enough, versus saying, I want to be a general manager at PNG in Cincinnati, at this point in my career. You don't need to be that specific. So as long as you are, all that they want to see is, are you someone who is thoughtful and who is intentional about your future? I think that is the most important thing that they're looking for. And this is another thing. So Siam, to your question, always uh, you know always preempt what is anticipated, right? So in an interview or in an admission process, so just think about, the things that I did was, I'd go through the annual report of Harvard Business School as a part of my admission prep. And I was like, you always get an opportunity to ask questions of the panel. So I was like, they're the best and the most, I mean, forgive me to kind of call them the best. Obviously, I'm biased in that, but I was really curious to understand, how does Harvard Business School make money? So I downloaded their annual report, went through it, and I was like, when it came to asking a question, then I asked them, hey, you see a lot of revenues coming from executive programs. So how do you, plan to grow it? And is that how you subsidize your MBA programs? So these are things which kind of showcase your ability to kind of connect with them and ask them questions that are pertinent. So anyway, so I digressed, but to your question, a specific answer would be, just be focused on leadership if that resonates well with you. Or find what resonates with you, which is not super deep and specific, but yet doesn't leave a scope for ambiguity.
Got it, Ravi. Thanks a lot.
Perfect. Shall we, Varya? Last section.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll sing through this, so it'll be a lullaby, and all of you can go to bed. So, but no, this is exciting stuff. So after MBA, I just thought I'd be a little boisterous and put up this picture of a corporate jet. So I never thought that I'd sit in a small little aeroplane like that, and I can't think of how many times I sat in it uh, at Emerson. So it was a fantastic opportunity. And the reason I actually shared this picture is, I'm not showing the bags and the files that I was carrying for my top bosses. I've hidden them somewhere, but that was my role, just to be a fly on the wall and help the CEO and the top leadership. And that was my first stint in corporate strategy. Then I went and built a business segment strategy, and then in the end I was responsible for the business unit strategy. And this was a nickname that I got from the current from the former CEO and chairman Scratch. So just a couple of pictures, and one of the most fascinating pieces of this is reflection, right? So reflection and curiosity. So again, Saim, you asked this question, hey, I want to understand, I want to get deeper knowledge. So I was in the same boat too when I took over the responsibility to craft a growth strategy for food service, which is a business segment. So we sell a lot of technology that goes into the McDonald's of the world. So a lot of compressors, a lot of control systems. And from my standpoint, I was like, oh my God, I know nothing about food service. I don't know nothing about quick serve restaurants. So how in this world am I going to build a strategy? So thankfully, it was not rockets that we were building and space that we had to operate in. It was in a restaurant. So I networked my way and got an opportunity to go work at a McDonald's restaurant for 3 full weeks. And as a part of it, I reflected every night, and I had a blog that I had shared with few of my colleagues, and it was so popular that there were about 150 to 200 people who would wait every day at the end of my work day at McDonald's to see what I've learned. And at the end of the process, I loved the experience so much. And just out of the sheer desire to document this experience, I published this book called In Pursuit of Nuggets of Wisdom. And these are all things that there's also a selfish purpose, right? So every December I try to do something that reminds me of the year, and I like to end the year on a high. So this was in, I think, 2018 when I published this book. And just something to make yourself just to pamper yourself with some effort. So and deep generalist skills, on the left side is a lot of hard skills. So I did a lot of strategy building, did a lot of M&A on deals that were discussed on Wall Street Journal, on CNBC, and also set up a modern sales and marketing function. This is more of a resume on the left side, so I'll just shut up and not speak about it. But on the right side, which is the most important thing, is through this process I've you know learned how to develop a good executive presence, how to communicate better, what are the presentation skills. And please give me feedback on how this presentation went, and if you enjoyed it or not, and if there are areas that I can work and improve on. And one of the most important things that I've learned was collaboration and interpersonal effectiveness. So just to consider all my peers as my teammates, and work with them as a team and not see them as competitors again. So it's a long road, and it you're not competing against them to be the CEO tomorrow. So it's really important to build that strong sense of camaraderie, if you will, and then build that relationship. And lastly, be action oriented and understand corporate America. So I will just go through this, and I'll skip this. This is a lot of in-depth stuff that we don't need to go into. But two most important things before I conclude. Work is worship, but it's not everything. So it's really important that we all take care of our health. So pick up a passion. It can be Bollywood dancing, it can be salsa, or it can be running, swimming. There has to be something which has to define you outside of your education and work experience. And it's never too late. I learned how to swim when I was 30, and I used to run when I was in Lucknow, but never really did it as a thing. But last year through COVID, I thought, screw this, I'm going to run every day outdoors, and I did it for 425 days. Just to kind of have some personal challenges, and something that challenges you for 20 days. And I'd suggest go on my LinkedIn, read this 2-minute piece, and I just speak about a happiness mantra. And in my case, it was running 20 minutes. Just gave me so much joy every day to clear my clutter, clear the clutter out of my mind. And the last thing is, this is the most precious little thing. I know all of us will get there, and it's really a fun part. Suddenly, when you pivot from just being a single guy to a married person, and you spend some years with your partner traveling and focusing on your career, and suddenly this happens, and your life is beautiful. And there's, again, you compartmentalize it, you segment it, and you'd want to be a good father, you'd want to be a great employee, you'd want to be a great husband. So the essence of this picture is there are multiple hats that you will don, irrespective of what it is in the future. So just to be able to segregate them. And Vikas, to your point, I cannot be 100% father, and I'll never aspire for that. So I'll try to be the best that I can be, and 80% is good. So that's what it is. So this something that Varya, please feel free to share this chart,
I'll do
share
that.
that. Yeah, and these are a lot of skills, and that we talked about. I categorized them. I mean, these are conferry skills, competencies, and it speaks to your competencies in thought, competencies in result, people, and self. In a sense, this is what corporate America is judged against. So these are skills, and you're not expected to have all of them. Every job will focus on 12 of them, and they just look for how good are you on these 12. And I just took a stab at over the years, just to think about what are my differentiating competencies, what are my strengths, and what are areas that I'm expected to perform. Siam, to your point, you know uh, compete with yourself, and this is plenty good for you to compete with yourself. So uh, and uh, and these are some things that I had done, got senior leaders to agree on goals, paid special attention to cultural issues. And as a deep generalist, I've always taken a holistic enterprise view rather than a siloed thinking, and so on and so forth. So I'll not bore you to death, but I thought about it. Should I start my slide deck with this, or should I end it with it? So I just thought it might make sense to end it with this. So this is a deep generalist in front of your eyes with all these different experiences. And there's obviously a lot of importance to personal attributes, professional attributes, different stints that I've had. So it just sums up a lot of things that I've been very, very lucky and privileged to experience. So that's about it. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always here, and Varya and I were talking about doing a master class on personal growth strategies. So hopefully we can get to that soon. And that's one of my favorite sessions. I just love it. And it speaks to, great many important things that we should focus on.